He also said, and wait for it, this is pretty racist, this is pretty sexist, this is pretty extreme. Basically, this is hate speech. He said, people should be treated as individuals. Yes, he actually said that. And for that, he was vilified, demonized, doxxed, unmasked, hunted down, and fired within 3 days of putting out this memo. Zero Hedge reports, I have a right to express my concerns. Fired Google engineer will pursue legal action. The computer engineer fired by Google for writing a memo in which he slammed the company's anti-conservative culture and said women are less suited to certain roles in tech and leadership, God forbid he commit that thought crime of saying men and women are different, is considering taking legal action against the company. So again, they go through it, and I'll go through a few things he said in this memo because obviously it's 10 pages long, it's 3,300 words, I'm not going to read it out all on air. But he said women and men are biologically different and have different skill sets suited to different tasks. That's a thought crime, you can't say that, even though Google hires 80% men to work on its technical side. And why is that? Because men are more prone, more suited, more attracted to technical jobs. Doesn't mean they're better. That's not misogyny. That's just biological difference, okay? Deal with it. He also said, men tend to occupy more leadership positions because they are under more pressure to be status-driven. Another fact based on biology. I'll get into some of the scientists who have backed him up on that in a minute. He also said companies like Google discriminate against conservatives because of their political views. And lo and behold, immediately after this blew up, now we have conservatives within Google, former engineers, current engineers, saying exactly that. He also said Google has set up a politically correct monoculture in order to enforce an ideological echo chamber that shames dissenters into silence. He also said, and wait for it, this is pretty racist, this is pretty sexist, this is pretty extreme. Basically, this is hate speech. He said, people should be treated as individuals. Yes, he actually said that. And for that, he was vilified, demonized, doxxed, unmasked, hunted down, and fired within 3 days of putting out this memo because the verified libtard mob outrage called for his head, and his head rolled. Oh, but they're tolerant progressives. They're tolerant progressives who love diversity, apart from diversity of opinion, in which case they will hound you, they will witch hunt you, they will shame you, they will cast you aside. So James Damore has been exposed for his egregious thought crimes, and this fallout is just snowballing. This is going to be a huge blowback for Google. It's going to be absolutely cataclysmic for their reputation because people are sick of this. This is why Trump won. This is why the right is dominating YouTube. This is why the right is dominating political discourse. This is why the left has to censor us, because they can't compete on a level playing field in the marketplace of ideas, because they don't have any arguments, because they can't make arguments. They're completely incapable of doing so, because for the past 10, 15 years, they've relied on calling people racist and shutting them down. That's it. Okay, if you don't develop, if you don't maintain, if you don't strengthen arguments, you lose the ability to make them, and you have to resort to censorship. The progressives are the new regressives, and this is yet another example of that. Let's get to what the scientists said, because of course he committed a thought crime by saying men and women are different. You can't say that anymore. Meanwhile, they're literally sending like 4-year-old kids to transgender camps, and that's progressive, that's cool. But this is a headline from Breitbart. Psychologists claim Google Viewpoint Diversity Manifesto is scientifically accurate. Listen to what they said. 4 scientists have claimed that James Damore's Google Manifesto is scientifically accurate. Responding to the Viewpoint Diversity Manifesto, which called for more ideological diversity in Google's workplace and pointed out not only the biological differences between men and women, but also how these can apply to work, the 4 scientists deemed the 10-page document to be scientifically accurate. This is what they said. Deborah W. So, PhD, a Canadian science writer, also deemed the manifesto to be scientifically accurate, declaring, as a woman who's worked in academia and within STEM, I didn't find the memo offensive or sexist in the least. She says, I found it to be a well thought out document asking for greater tolerance for differences in opinion and treating people as individuals instead of based on group membership. Within the field of neuroscience, sex differences between women and men when it comes to brain structure and function and associated differences in personality and occupational preferences are understood to be true. Okay? Facts don't care about your feelings. This is mainstream science because the evidence for them, she continues, thousands of studies, is strong. This is not information that's considered controversial or up for debate. If you tried to argue otherwise or for purely social influences, you'd be laughed at. But the left can't have that, can they? Because of this insane, deranged, cult-like conspiracy theory that everything's a social construct. No, everything's not a social construct. Men can't get pregnant. No matter how many stupid headlines you come out saying man gets pregnant, it's not a man. Let's listen to what other scientists said. Professor David P. Schmidt. Quote, I think it's really important to discuss this topic scientifically, keeping an open mind and using informed skepticism when evaluating claims about evidence. In the case of personality traits, evidence that men and women may have different average levels of certain traits is rather strong. I made a whole video about this. I had an argument with a feminist who claimed that men were only better than women at most sports because of society, because it was a social construct. No, complete BS. Men have greater muscle mass. They have greater bone mass. Again, doesn't mean they're better than women. Just means they're better than women at some things. Women are better than men at others. Why is that a thought crime to say? So again, the professional Australian women's soccer team, highly trained, played a team of 15-year-old boys, okay? Who won? The 15-year-old boys won 7-0. Men are better than women at some sports because they have greater bone density, because they have greater muscle mass. Men and women are biologically different. That's a scientific fact. Deal with it. We're going to skip this break, by the way. Absolutely insane. The left is at war with reality. And now they're saying, people who don't believe this cult-like mentality, this deranged set of beliefs about everything being a social construct, maybe we should target them. Maybe we should prevent them from being employed in the first place. I've actually seen tweets from prominent people saying, let's just create blacklists of people who we deem to have conservative opinions and prevent them from being hired by any company in the future. This is the ideological purge. This is the summit of Trump derangement syndrome. This is the hysteria that has been born as a result of their rampant butt hurt. Absolutely incredible. Let's see what some of the other scientists said about James Damore and his temerity in claiming that men and women are biologically different. This is, again, out of Breitbart. It's a Quillette study or survey of scientists. The author of the Google essay on issues related to diversity gets nearly all of the science and its implications exactly right, declared Rutgers University professor Lee Jussim. He says its main points are that 1, neither the left nor the right gets diversity completely right, and 2, the social science evidence on implicit and explicit bias has been wildly oversold and is far weaker than most people seem to realize. 3, Google has perhaps unintentionally, yeah, right, created an authoritarian atmosphere that has stifled discussion of these issues by stigmatizing anyone who disagrees as a bigot and instituted authoritarian policies of reverse discrimination. 4, the policies and atmosphere systematically ignore biological, cognitive, educational, and social science research on the nature and sources of individual and group differences. So again, the fact that men and women, biologically different, suited to different jobs, that men are more technically minded, that women are more people-minded. That makes them better at certain jobs which require greater communication. Again, doesn't mean either is better than the other. It means society works because we have all bases covered. God forbid. But no, we can't have that. We have to have this warped idea of equality where everybody's the same. Oh, and by the way, everyone can just choose their gender on a daily basis. Absolutely incredible. So now there's going to be a lawsuit against Google. This is completely blown up in their face. And again, it proves, as Daily Caller reports today in an article entitled, "Corporations Remain the Biggest Threat to Free Speech." The state is no longer the biggest threat. When you've got a virtual monopoly on the creation of video commentary, which is what YouTube has got, owned by Google, that's a monopoly. There's nowhere else to go. People say, just start your own YouTube network, just start your own video network. No, it doesn't work like that. For a start, you would not be able to afford it if you wanted to scale it up to any kind of level. Secondly, it would be an echo chamber. You'd be preaching to the choir. It would be completely pointless. The whole idea of getting out on these social media networks is to wake people up, is to give them the red pill. And it worked. Why do you think Trump won? Why do you think they're freaking out? Because it works. So the solution is not just to leave these platforms. The solution is to tackle these censorship issues head on, force these companies through pressure into apologizing, support the whistleblowers within these organizations that come out and expose this bias. Oh, and by the way, there's a fundraiser on Chuck Johnson's WeSearcher. You can look for that. Just type in WeSearcher, unless that's been banned by Google as well on the search results. Maybe try a different search engine. WeSearch.com has got a fundraiser for him to support him as he tries to sue the company. So again, support these people, speak out against Google, create a snowball of momentum of actual legitimate outrage against them completely crushing free speech. There's nothing more important than this, because if this is allowed to be carried through, we won't be here anymore. Basically that simple. Next, they'll target radio. And we've seen moves to do that in the past with the fairness doctrine. But again, this is an absolutely massive story. I'm going to be doing a video on it, which will be up within the next couple of hours after I get off the show here.
Survival Shield X2 Nascent Iodine. If you're interested in healthy thyroid, if you're interested in well-being, if you're interested in having a higher IQ, which this has been linked to, get your powerful Survival Shield X2 at InfoWarsStore.com.